Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I am John and I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you for the click. I wanted to do another entry in the thing I've nicknamed John's Cool Junk. That's a goofy name, I know, but I had many viewers and followers ask to learn more about the stuff that's on the set behind me here in Studio G. I assembled those things on the set because I wanted what was behind me when I do these videos to represent my Generation X experience, my childhood growing up in what I will argue was the best time to ever grow up. And because many folks want to know what is the kind of stuff that I have on the set behind me, let's turn around, grab something, and take a closer look at it. Now I know this is a little bit of theater because you've already seen the thumbnail, but we're going to do the exercise. I mean, I see Cornelius up here, and there's 2XL, some Lego Atari stuff, all kinds of cool stuff on this side, but I'm going to zoom in over here with all this stack of puzzly Rubik's Cubes things, and I'm going to grab my Wonderful Puzzler. Now at first glance, you might just think this is another Rubik's Cube, and I would understand why you might think that. Or you might even say, well, hey, it's an off-brand Rubik's Cube. It's called Wonderful Puzzler. Why is this a thing you even care about? Well, Rubik's Cubes in general, I love. They came out in 1980. I immediately latched onto them as something that I could figure out and get my head around and kind of be in control. And I've talked about in other videos. In fact, I'll throw a link up in the corner, I think, to our old A to Z video where I talk about the fact that Rubik's Cubes, puzzle cubes in general, were a thing that I had power for. You know, I was an unpopular, nerdy kid in school. I guess it was probably middle school at the time. And you know, none of the cool kids talked to me or anything, but they did want the Rubik's Cube solved. And because I knew how to do it, me and two other people at my middle school knew how to solve it, they would hand me their cube in the hallway. And I would hand it back to them a period later, and they would be amazed, and they would accuse me of taking it apart. They would accuse me of taking off the stickers. And really, I just learned how to do the Rubik's Cube. And so I love collecting Rubik's Cubes of any kind, especially vintage ones. And the Wonderful Puzzler is not a vintage Rubik's Cube, but it is a vintage knockoff Rubik's Cube. This was manufactured by some company in Taiwan. They called it the Wonderful Puzzler, and they made a knockoff Rubik's Cube. Now keep in mind, this happened right as the Rubik's Cube dropped. It had just started its popularity. So in a weird twist of fate, even though this is not a genuine Rubik's Cube, the fact that it was so early in the life of the toy, and for this to have been a knockoff, and a popular knockoff at that, the Wonderful Puzzler became part of Rubik's Cube history. This company that was making fake Rubik's Cubes, making a killing, by the way, they realized immediately that this was something they should capitalize on. And it's kind of in a lot of ways how Atari games were initially all made by Atari, but when other companies figured out they could make things for Atari, those also became collectible, especially if they were rare. And while these aren't terribly rare, they do hold their value. Now, here's the thing. It's a terrible Rubik's Cube. Like, it barely turns. It's so tight. Forget about speed cubing. Forget about kind of, you know, cutting the corners and stuff. This thing, I mean, it's super tight. It barely moves. It's a horrible Rubik's Cube. And yet, I have it and love it because it was given to me as a gift by my wife some years ago because she knew I enjoyed collecting them, and she came across this. She'd read the story about how this little Taiwanese company made these knockoff Rubik's Cubes right at the origin of the puzzle cube fad, and these in their own right. Now, I would love to have an original Rubik's Cube in the little cardboard box because that kind of looks similar on the shelf. I'd love to have that. So while I may not have an original vintage Rubik's Cube in my collection, I do have an original vintage Wonderful Puzzler in my collection. It's a great addition. It's a great piece to my little set. I know you typically can't see it because it sits back there behind my melon on my cube of cubes. My cube of cubes in my cubes is where I keep this. Man, if you enjoy looking at other vintage toys and gadgets like this, I'll throw a link up in the corner here or over here over my shoulder. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy though in this video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.